BigCountryPreps.com. I'm Evan Wren, and this is the Countdown to Two-A-Days series, our daily look at an area football team and the key questions we're going to be answering about that team on our August 21st preseason preview here at Big Country Preps. I'm with my partner, Dan Youngblood, via Zoom. And tonight, Dan, we've got one of the new teams that we're covering, the Glen Rose Tigers.
Yes, one of five schools being added to the Big Country Preps coverage area this season, and one we're very excited about. They are coming off back-to-back state semifinal appearances, and they are pretty loaded this year. They've got 27 of their 35 lettermen back from last year's 10-5 team. Among those, 9 offensive and 6 defensive starters, so a lot of talent back from last year's group, and just a ton of kids who have done some pretty special things for that program. So I'm excited to get to see this Glen Rose team a little more up close and personal this year, and just to see what this group's all about. Clearly very explosive, and coming off, like I said, two fantastic seasons. You know the expectations are going to be high. We've dealt with Coach Cliff Watkins before, back when he was from his Eastland days. So excited to have him back in the fold. But just in general, very excited about this program.
That's a former Arizona Wildcat quarterback right there,
Is that right?
Mr. Watkins. Yes.
Mm.
All right. Well, he of course transferred out, but we won't get into that. There was a reason for that. I won't say his name, but his initials were John Makovic. But I won't say anything further. Anything. Anyway, before we get started tonight, I want to remind you YouTubers to please hit the subscribe button. And then after that, please hit that little bell so that you'll get notifications each and every time that we come up with a new video here at Big Country Preps. Also, we'd like to thank a couple of our sponsors, beginning with For the Love of the Game Broadcasting and our old friend Terry Slavens, owner of KLAX 93.5 FM out of Brackenridge, 97.7 FM KATX out of Eastland, Classic Country AM 1330 out of Graham, 94.7 FM KWKQ out of Graham, KROO 1430 AM out of Breck, and KWBY 98.5 FM out of Ranger. That is For the Love of the Game Broadcasting. Also, Rob Durham, sales consultant at Bear Chevrolet Buick Cadillac up in Breckenridge. If you're in the market for a vehicle, give Rob a shout at 254-559-2266. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever want to meet. That is Rob Durham up at Bear Chevrolet Buick Cadillac in Breckenridge.
All right. And with that, let's go ahead and jump in. Let's talk about the Glen Rose Tigers and some of the biggest questions facing this team here in 2024. And honestly, like I said at the outset, not a whole lot of questions. This is a group that has a lot of talent back, a lot of kids who have done, like I said, some very special things. You look up and down that offense and defense, just some really, really special players. Canyon Evans, a quarterback, passed for over 4,500 yards and 49 touchdowns last year. Receiver Josiah Grunweg, if I butchered that, I'm sorry. We will learn how to pronounce that over the course of this season, I promise.
It's
And,
the proper German pronunciation. I was impressed. That was good.
But he had over 1,600 yards and 19 touchdowns, and a first-team All-State receiver. Just talent. And then Adrian Sanchez, another receiver, had almost 900 yards. So they got just an exceptional passing game. And then defensively, Kelton Raymond, a defensive lineman, 127 tackles, 28 tackles for loss, 13 and a half sacks last year. Just up and down their roster, guys who have just put up enormous numbers. So I say all that to say this: my question for them is this the year that Glen Rose gets past that hump of the state semifinals? Could this team get to Arlington? Obviously, they've lost to a couple of very good teams the last 2 years, eventual state champions. When you talk about Gilmer and Carthage, but this is the team that I think has set its goals at that level. I'm going to be excited to see if they can get there this year.
If they're going to get to Jerry World, they're going to have to, and this is my question for them, can they replace their linebacking core? Because they've graduated everybody, and that's a tough thing to do, is to replace all your linebackers. But if they can do that, if they can find 3 guys to do the job, they don't have to be extraordinary, because they're going to be scoring a ton of points, a ton. Okay, these guys will be able to outscore most of the people they play, even if their defense plays substandard on a given night. But if you want to get back to Jerry World, they're going to have to replace those linebackers, get 3 guys in there that can do the job. And if they can do that, they're going to have a shot, because this bunch is going to score a whole bunch of points, a lot.
And the last question kind of goes hand in hand with the first. When you talk about how good can this team be, I'm just interested to see how hungry this team's going to be. When you talk about a group that's lost in back-to-back years in the state semifinals to the eventual state champion, this team's right on the cusp of doing something very, very special, of getting to Arlington and playing for a state championship. What will that just how will that impact the team in terms of motivation? You've got to think that this team is very, very hungry to get to a state championship game. They've been so close the last 2 years. I'm just interested to see kind of how that plays out. I think that you're going to have a lot of senior players on this team that have been, kind of to the edge there, to the precipice, and I'm excited to see what that group in particular can do in terms of leading this team and this program.
There's not going to be a lack of motivation in that camp after getting that close twice. There's not going to be a lack of motivation. With that, let's take a look at the Glen Rose football schedule for 2024. We'll start with the non-district portion, and that's gonna begin on August the 30th at home against Grandview. Then they'll travel September 6th to Gatesville. Another road trip to Brownwood follows that on the 13th. On the 20th, Waco Robinson will pay a visit, and that will be followed by another home date with Alvarado on September 27th before an open date and then into district.
And they jump right into district with a road trip to Godley, coached by former Clyde coach Danny Dudgeon, so a guy that we're very familiar with. Then they come home on October 18th rather to face Hillsboro before going on the road on October 25th to face Venus. They stay on the road the following week, November 1st, at Fort Worth Benbrook before wrapping up their regular season schedule at home against Fort Worth Dunbar.
Right. With every team that we preview on our podcast, we pick a game of the year for that team. And I'll go ahead and let you go first, Dan, on this one. What is the most important game on the schedule as you see it for Glen Rose?
I think I'm going to go with that district opener. I think Godley is a program that's had a lot of success. You're talking about a coach who's had a lot of success in Dudgeon that brings a very exciting, high flying style. I think that one on the road to start district could be a nice test off that open date. And if they win that one, I think they're going to be in pretty good shape to cruise the rest of the way toward a district championship.
I agree. I think a win at Godley would set the tone for the rest of that district portion of their schedule. That's you never want to start off at 0-1. In this particular instance, I think it's that Godley game on the road that's going to be the most important for them. All right, and with that, it's about time to wrap up this edition of the Countdown to Two-A-Days series, the Glen Rose Tigers. But before we do that, we want to remind you that on August 21st, that's the big day here at BigCountryPreps.com. That's the day that we release our annual preseason football preview. It'll have previews for all the football teams, the 11-man football teams we cover, plus the overall six-man preview. We'll have player features for every single 11-man team that we cover. We'll have a bunch of photos, a bunch of videos. We'll have stats. We'll have standings. We'll have predictions. We'll have opinion pieces. You name it, we're going to have it. It's a ton of material. Don't miss the fun. That is August 21st.
And as we mentioned at the beginning of today's podcast, we do have 5 new schools in the coverage area. Along with Glen Rose, we have added Mineral Wells, Graham, Toller, and Miles. So we are really excited to be covering those schools, adding those 5 to the mix. We hope y'all are excited to follow our coverage of those programs throughout our school year. In the meantime, thank you for joining us for this episode of the Countdown to Two-A-Days series. And make sure you come back tomorrow when we talk about the Big Spring Steers here at BigCountryPreps.com.